Mass cull begins amid bird flu scare. Family feud at Sun Hung Kai properties coming to an end. And Ukrainian parliament repeals anti-protest law. Good evening. The government started to cull 20,000 chickens at the Chengsha temporary wholesale poultry market after samples from across the border tested positive for the H7N9 virus. Secretary for Food and Health Ko Wing-man says Hong Kong authorities are waiting for their mainland counterparts to confirm the source of the infection. Stephanie Choi has our top story. The chief executive has called for a rethink on the consumption of live poultry in Hong Kong, and there are fresh calls to consider a permanent ban on the live poultry trade here. Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying thinks it's time for Hong Kong to break with tradition as far as its demand for fresh chicken meat is concerned. He said Hong Kong needs to reconsider its habit of consuming live poultry during the festive season.
This is the fifth time that we have picked up a positive sample in the last 17 years, since 1997. And therefore, the Secretary for Health announced a series of measures according to the existing policies.
Besides losses for chicken vendors, it's a headache for cooks like this one. What shall I serve instead of chicken during the Lunar New Year, she asks. These women suggest using eggs or pork for ancestor worship when they would normally use a freshly cooked chicken. Chilled chicken is an alternative for those who simply must have chicken on the menu, and it costs much less than fresh meat. But that eats into the profit of shops. And as far as public health is concerned, experts warn that live birds in local markets pose a serious threat to public health.
This H7N9 is different from the other avian influenza virus. Firstly, it has the potential to spread from animal to human. And not only from animal to human, there is increasing evidence it can spread from contaminated environment to human. That means people without direct contact with the animal could acquire the infection from exposure to wet market. We should be revisiting the question of a permanent ban of the live poultry trade in Hong Kong as soon as possible.
Dr. Ho adds that live poultry infected with the H7N9 avian influenza virus is a particularly dangerous kind of threat because infected birds do not show signs of sickness and because even the top-notch testing technology used here in Hong Kong is not 100% effective in detecting the virus. Joao da Silva, TV News. In other news, a deal announced by Sun Hung Kai Properties may have now marked the end of a long-standing dispute among members of the Kwok family that controls the property giant. Former chairman Walter Kwok has stepped down as a non-executive director. The statement also said he and his family received the same entitlement to shares in the company as his two brothers, Raymond and Thomas, and their families. That restores Walter Kwok as a beneficiary of the family trust. He was ousted as chairman back in 2008 and later removed as a beneficiary of the trust. Raymond and Thomas Kwok currently serve as joint chairman of Sun Hung Kai Properties. China says it's lodged a protest against Japan's revision of its teaching manuals to lay claim to disputed islands in the East China Sea. Earlier today, Japan's education minister said the decision was made to reflect the government's official view on territorial disputes with China and South Korea. He said the current manuals don't mention the island chain called the Senkakus by Japan and the Diaoyus by China and rocky islets known as Dokdo in Korea and Takeshima in Japan. The revision is seen as part of education reform by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's government. The foreign ministry in Beijing responded angrily, urging Tokyo to stop provocations. It's just the latest in a string of incidents that have strained relations between the two countries. Ukraine's parliament has repealed anti-protest laws that set off violent clashes between police and demonstrators after they were put in place earlier this month. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mykola Azarov submitted his resignation today, saying he hopes it could help end the country's political crisis. Alan Bookney reports. Thailand's government has announced it will go ahead with parliamentary elections this Sunday, despite street protests and an opposition boycott. Thailand's Deputy Prime Minister made the announcement today after a meeting between caretaker Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra and the Election Commission, which had sought a delay in the polls. Yingluck attended the meeting, despite a blockade around the venue by anti-government protesters pushing for her resignation before any polls are held. Protesters want Yingluck replaced by a non-elected interim government that would institute reforms to fight corruption. The demonstrators have said they will continue their action regardless. With less than a month to go before the Olympic Winter Games kick off in Sochi, the Olympic torch has reached the volatile Russian Republic of Dagestan. The torch's arrival comes amid mounting criticism of the Games from both outside and inside Russia. James Aiken reports. Tragedy has struck Indonesia's main island of Java. 2 landslides triggered by torrential rain killed at least 19 people and left 10 others missing. A number of houses were buried when mud rolled down from surrounding hills just after midnight in a village in East Java's Jombang district. Hundreds of police officers, soldiers and residents dug through the debris with their hands and shovels. Authorities admit a lack of equipment hampered their rescue efforts. Pete Seeger, who helped create the modern American folk music movement and co-wrote some of its most enduring songs, died at the age of 94. His grandson said he died of natural causes at a hospital in New York. Seeger is credited with protest songs such as We Shall Overcome and folk classics like If I Had a Hammer. He was hailed in social and traditional media as a hero, America's conscience, and a man of the people. Seeger was known for his liberal politics, his environmental work, and his involvement in anti-war movements from Vietnam to Iraq. In sports, Manchester United's record-signing Juan Mata could make his debut for the club as early as tonight. Tony Sabine has more. Kevin Durant had an outstanding game for Oklahoma City, inspiring his team to a comeback win over the Atlanta Hawks. And tonight's winning mark 6 numbers: 4, 20, 27, 30, 31, 37, and the extra number is 18. A look at the weather: mainly clear and dry during the day tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 16 and 21 degrees. Moderate easterly winds, fresh offshore overnight. Outlook: sunny during the day in the following few days. Mild for the Lunar New Year holidays. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Good night.